Okay, so today is Rare Disease Day, and so I wanted to explain how I got a diagnosis with my rare genetic disorder and condition. So, just to preface this, I wasn't diagnosed until I was 20 years old, but I had some previous diagnoses, but these weren't like anything that really painted a huge picture. So, just wanted to preface that before I start on. So, when I was born with a lot of unknown problems. And these were pretty noticeable. I was actually born with 2 different sized feet and a club foot. I also had differences in the leg lengths, and I also had some eye problems. I wasn't really looking at people correctly. I wasn't making eye contact. I also was pretty delayed. And a lot of things I was in physical therapy when I was younger. Because of that, I was delayed in basically all the milestones, except for communication. I wasn't delayed in that, but I did have speech problems, that I kind of coincided with my learning disabilities. My learning disabilities were never diagnosed, but they were just generalized. So, when others were learning how to write their name at 4 years old, I couldn't even hold a pencil. I was also diagnosed, and I do believe the school diagnosed me with this, and maybe also potentially my doctor, but I was diagnosed with intellectual disability when I was really young. I went to special needs preschool, and there was just a lot of things that weren't that my parents just saw that really just weren't right. They knew that there was something wrong in me. Even as a baby, my family knew that something was off with me. So when I was 1 years old, they took me to get genetic testing done, which was fairly high, which was pretty expensive and stuff. And so when I got genetic testing when I was 1, they told my parents and my family, just to continue what they were doing, and that they were on the right path, but that they couldn't really find anything in me. They said it would be very hard to find stuff in me, which when I was genetic testing, I was 1 years old at the time, and it was back in 2004, so it was really hard to diagnose genetic conditions back then. So I was tested then for it, and then as I kind of grew and got older, there started to be a lot more apparent problems and just apparent issues and stuff. I was able to socialize, but I had no clue about any social skills. I was very unaware, so I could be outside and everyone could go inside and they could just walk in, and if no one said something, I could be standing there. Or if, let's say, there were kids and these kids were, maybe not so friendly, I would think that they were friendly and they want to be my friend, even though maybe they didn't and stuff. I was not really aware of my own surroundings. I was kind of always in my own world and always had my own stuff as well. I also had a really hard time socializing. I never understood social cues. Never got social cues. I maybe understood a few, but it was really hard for me. I also never really liked being my age, but I did at the same time. So I always preferred to be younger, act younger sometimes, look younger, but then I also wanted to do what the other kids were doing, especially when it came to high school. When others were driving, I wanted to drive too, and stuff. My family, and especially my mom, was never really one to let my disabilities define me, which was definitely something I learned and that I never wanted to really portray them. I'm not like portraying that I'm not disabled and that they still don't cause me struggles. And that's not really what we were getting at here. But I just wanted to really not let other people tell me that I couldn't do things, especially since a lot of people really like to tell people, oh, here's what you can't do. And so it was sometimes really hard. I felt like I should be like the other kids, but at the same time, I knew maybe I wasn't up to par with them. And there was just like a lot of things too. Like when kids aged out of things, like when other kids are like aging out of, playing with toys, I was still playing with toys. And I was pretty delayed in some of those aspects. But I actually was growing a lot as a child, and I really increased. The last IQ score that I had was actually an IQ of 62, and so that was pretty good. As a child, I also had a lot of just undiagnosed medical problems. There's a lot of like other medical problems that really were kind of like unsolved. I had a lot of tests as well as a child, and I actually had another smaller genetic test in 2015, and that also had no answer. So I really didn't have any quite yet hope. I had 4 surgeries before I was diagnosed. I also had braces as well, and then I also had to wear a back brace. I had to wear AFOs. I also had to wear retainers, glasses, and I forget, this goes in your teeth, but it's like headgear. Also the lower bands, they like connect to your braces and stuff, so I had to wear a lot of that kind of stuff as well. I actually was wearing a back brace for over 10 years, and that never really fixed. I really didn't feel like my problems really started to really come on and really started to be noticeable until I was probably about maybe 12, and it was just very noticeable. But the more I got into like high school, I felt like I was noticing them a little bit more. Like I noticed I started to have like stomach issues and problems, and I really didn't know what that was caused by or anything. And it was a little frustrating, but it wasn't, because I just really didn't know what those were. And we came to the conclusion, and we always thought it was my back because I had a pretty severe curve, but it wasn't my back. I also did graduate high school, but I didn't graduate like on time as everybody else. So I was actually I was held back a year behind everybody else. And so I graduated, but I did graduate with a lot of my friends and stuff. I really never really resonated with typical children. Usually children that will also special needs I resonated with, but I also like typical children. And so yeah, I also had like a lot of like different like obsessions, we would call them, when I was a child, but now they're like special interests or like, but to me they weren't. I really didn't know what that was. Didn't really know that I could have one until I started getting a little older. I was also very repetitive as a child, very repetitive. I also have behavioral problems, but these weren't like anything bad and stuff. And these were like ones like I would stem a lot. I would flap my hands. I would like the same music on like even things like walking back and forth. I was a very repetitive person, and I still am. I also really liked routine and spontaneity and like similarity and things like right now, every single Wednesday I eat cheesy bread because I call it cheesy bread night. I also like to eat the same snacks at night. A lot of times the same thing for breakfast. And so it's just very like competitiveness. And then now I have like special interest. I didn't start officially having special interest till like 2020. I started with the Peanuts gang, and then I kind of funneled on to my one that I always really had actually was like jewelry making, organizing, and then now one of mine that I really like I've been having for you is like Perry Como and the music. I love the music. I like the 50s and the 60s music. I've been playing this music for almost around a year and a half, over a year and a half, and stuff. So I am like really big into that, and I'm also very, very just repetitive, and just a lot of different aspects as well, and everything like that. And I also feel like people definitely notice that. People definitely could see it as well. And these are definitely like very noticeable things. I also still am kind of a little bit of a particular person. I was particular. I also really didn't have much anxieties as a kid. I was a pretty happy child. Of course, when it came to like the unknown, unexpected, I might have some anxieties sometimes, but not really. Like if I go to the doctor and have a medical procedure, yeah, I would have anxieties. But I was actually a very happy child. I liked being around a lot of people. I just had a lot of unknown things that were just not right. I mean, they didn't sit right with my parents. And I want to preface my family for this. My family has done a wonderful job. My parents have done a wonderful job. No one in their right mind could have ever diagnosed me with this. Only a doctor could have diagnosed me with this. And this disorder is so rare. It wasn't even found in 2014. I am not mad. I'm not upset that I wasn't diagnosed until later in life. I'm just glad I have an answer now and that we know I have these problems, especially like why my stomach is upset, why I had a courage transfer, why I'm intellectually disabled, why I didn't get my license on time, and everything like that. And I also want to preface and thank everyone who has helped me in my life. I would not be able to be here if it wasn't for my family, my friends, my teachers, disability services. I would not have a license. And I just want to preface this. Thank you so much, everyone who has followed me and who has came along on the journey with me. Just thank you so much for everyone who has been here and who has just been a big support, because I would not be here without any of these people. I would not be where I am today. I would not be. And now I've come such a long way since I was younger. And that's just one of the things, is that I and my mother really never want my disability to define me, and I decided I'm not going to let my disability define me, because at the end of the day, what good is it going to do me? So I really just feel like if you are struggling, just want to know, I understand, and I understand your struggles. I know it can be hard. Don't give up. If you're looking for answers, don't give up. Trust me, you might have an answer someday. I definitely never thought that I would have had an answer, especially walking in to my genetic test. And I was probably thinking I'm not going to have an answer, but my heart just dropped when my doctor handed me the papers and said, "You finally have an answer." And I just want to focus that this would have not been possible without perseverance and without me just achieving these goals. And one of the reasons why I don't want my disability to get in my way is because I don't want to let that define me when and wait for an answer to do all these things. It took me a lot of time to be where I am at today. It took me 2 years to get my license, and I'm so happy to have my license. I can drive around town. I can drive to work. No, maybe I don't drive. Maybe I don't drive to the city of Cleveland, but heck, I can drive to work. I can drive to the store. I can even drive and go thrifting. I can go a lot of places, and I'm just really grateful for that, and I'm just grateful to have my license, and just so grateful that I have an answer and a diagnosis. So, if you're still waiting on a diagnosis, just know you are not alone. And yeah, happy Rare Disease Day to everyone, and thank you so much for all the support this Rare Disease Month. And I do want to say one last thing. Thank you so much to my family for being here, and happy Rare Disease Day.